As President Trump is now touting new job numbers just days after firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, claiming without any evidence the figures the agency released last week were rigged. Yesterday, he displayed new numbers found by an economist at the conservative Heritage Foundation. The numbers are based on unpublished data from the Census Bureau, making it difficult to verify independently.
I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. Mr. President, that's a gigantic error. And I don't know if she's, I'm not
It might not have been an error, that's the bad part. If it was an error, it would be one thing. I don't think it's an error. I think they did it purposely.
In his first 5 months in office, starting in January through the end of June, the average median household income adjusted for inflation for the average family in America is already up $1,174. That's
an incredible number. Yeah. Just came out.
Just came out. So that's a giant gain.
And if I would have said this, nobody would have believed it. There's your number.
Those Kinko charts brought to you by the same people that brought you Project 2025. Let's bring in right now CNBC senior markets correspondent Dom Chu. Dom, those numbers, we don't know what those numbers are. Heritage Foundation, obviously, as pro-MAGA as any organization in Washington, D.C. This is the sort of thing, though, I'm sure your attitude is my attitude. It's all going to work itself out in the wash. We're going to know. You can try to lie to reporters. You can try to lie to the press corps there, but you can't lie to the American people who have lost their jobs or who have trouble getting jobs or just can't keep up with their bills every month. What can you tell us about what we saw in the White House yesterday and what the economy really looks like?
What the economy really looks like right now is all about perspective, to your point, Joe. The idea here behind at least the push by the Trump administration to kind of reframe these numbers is an attempt to try to show America that his agenda is actually working. Now, there is evidence on all kinds of fronts here with regard to whether or not that's a true statement or not. But as you point out, when you do have Stephen Moore, the economist at the Heritage Foundation, kind of pointing out these numbers, there is a bigger concern on Wall Street that there is now a politicization of the statistics and the data that goes into telling all of us just how good or poorly the economy is performing. If that's the case, there is a real issue on Wall Street about whether or not the data is going to be something that can be relied on going forward. Now, the reason why it's a big issue is that for decades and decades now, the Labor Department, the Commerce Department, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, all of the machinations that happen with regard to data gathering and data transmission to all of the parties involved in the U.S. economy have always been relatively apolitical, right? You have staffers that have been there for years, made a career out of gathering survey data, out of counting things, out of putting that data out there so that we can all understand what's going on. Now, if there were a construct by the president right now to try to improve on what exactly is the survey methodology or the counting methodology for how we measure much of our economy with regard to GDP or jobs or anything else, then that would be welcome. If you can find a better way to do things, then I think that Wall Street would be very supportive of it. But for right now, it appears as though when you march out people who want to emphasize certain things but not others, and then you put it against a backdrop of saying that the Bureau of Labor Statistics had been manipulating the data in the past with no real evidence of that, that's what's causing some of the uncertainty. I think a lot of the conversations I've had, at least with folks on Wall Street that I speak to on a normal basis, are about whether or not there is going to be any kind of a real change to how they would gauge the health of the economy, whether or not they can feel as though they're getting an accurate picture. So that's one of the main reasons why we are seeing a little bit more of that concern. Now, it is not, by the way, Joe, Mika, Willie, Jonathan, translating into at least a broad market move lower. We are seeing much of the market shake off even the tariff threat, whatever is happening with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There's a lot of focus right now on Stephen Mirren about whether or not the Fed is going to be more dovish going forward. But that's going to be the big deal. A lot of that emphasis on is on where rates are going to go vis-a-vis the economic picture right now, guys.
And it goes without saying that President Trump has not been critical of the BLS when those statistics went his way. But now when they don't, these statisticians are suddenly members of the deep state. So, Dom, let's talk more specifically about the tariffs that went into effect midnight yesterday. So we're just about a day and a half into these massive tariffs on some of our biggest trading partners, our allies. You had the president of Switzerland actually flying to Washington to meet with President Trump to plead to get the 39% tariffs down. A miscalculation on the number we put on Japan had to be corrected. What is the fallout right now internationally now that this day has come, as promised by President Trump?
So the fallout internationally, to your point, Willie, is far-reaching. I mean, as you point out, we have world leaders now not only trying to engage with the Trump administration and the White House here with regard to trying to figure out what new deals they can cut, but they're also trying to cut deals amongst themselves on a bilateral, trilateral, unilateral basis between other parties. That is now translating into maybe what we are seeing with regard to some of the macro picture on the U.S. dollar. We've mentioned before that the U.S. dollar's value has been declining over the course of the last several months. That also means, by relative extension, that when the dollar declines in value, other currencies, whether they be in emerging markets or developed economies like in Europe and Asia, those currencies go up in value. That's kind of the main rubber meets the road market impact here. With regard to the U.S. stock market approach, it's somewhat more mixed. I mean, to be fair, we are still near record highs in the market right now. And even with the implementation, with that deadline and the tariffs going into effect on those some 90 countries and the increased tariff rates, the Dow Industrials finished the day off 0.5%, fractionally. Meanwhile, the tech-heavier NASDAQ Composite Index was actually up nearly 0.5%, and the S&P 500, the broadest measure of the large cap stock market in America, was pretty much flat. So there is a sense on Wall Street, Willie, that people are still trying to figure out what's going on. But the general feeling is that unless we see real negative impacts flow through to the economy, through to the data, the aforementioned data, there's no reason to panic just yet, Joe.
Yeah, you know, it is something we've been talking about it over the past several months. It does appear that at least Wall Street has absorbed the impact of these tariffs. Like as you said, you look at NASDAQ, you look at the big tech stocks, they continue roaring on. The Dow's up around 44,000. So they've absorbed the shock of these tariffs. The big question remains for Wall Street and the world, what happens with those tariff talks between the United States and China. CNBC's Dom Chu, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. And I will say, Mika, also on Donald Trump's nominee for the Fed, he actually has sounded off as if he is an inflation hawk. He was critical of Jerome Powell, but he was critical of Jerome Powell for actually cutting rates last year. And his approach was, and his attitude was, we can take the economy being down for a quarter or two. What we can't handle is runaway inflation. So if Donald Trump were looking for somebody who would automatically cut rates, at least based on what we've seen over the past year or two, his nominee is not that person.